welcome to episode 16 of Film Stop. Today we're going to be talking about John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum and really dive into both the review and a spoiler-filled discussion. But before we do so, I'm really excited to introduce a new guest to the show. This one is special because I've known him for 5 years. We work together, but we're more than just work friends. We spend a lot of time doing water cooler talks, obviously working too sometimes. But apart from that, just kind of really spending time exchanging pop culture discussions. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mitchell Mealing. Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Suraj, how you doing?
Pretty good. So, welcome to the show. How does it feel like being on the show?
This is crazy. This is it's interesting. I'm getting used to it still.
Do you think that? Are you nervous a little bit?
We'll see.
Yeah, like the 4 people who listen to this.
You're a pretty big movie guy, so I feel like you're gonna bust out some knowledge on me. It's gonna throw me off.
No. I think that we've talked enough about movies to know that we both kind of question each other's themes and analysis quite often. But hey, before we dive into the movie and stuff like that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, like you mentioned, my name's Mitchell Mealing. I work with you. I'm a giant Manchester City fan.
Yeah.
Just won 4 trophies this year. Yes, I'm counting the Community Shield as a trophy. Go ahead and call me out on that if there are any other EPL fans out there. Yeah, that pretty much sums me up.
Yeah, the Man City part is a huge part of who Mitchell Mealing is, by the way, guys. I mean, he's probably the biggest soccer fan I know, or I've known in the past 5 to 6 years. And also, Mitch, why don't you tell us about your top 3 favorite movies of all time in this current phase of your life?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that earlier, and it changes so much. But I would say right now, definitely number 1 is Casino Royale for sure. And then number 2 and 3, I'm gonna go with Love Actually, favorite Christmas movie.
Nice.
And we've talked about that before. And I'm going to go a childhood movie that I really liked, which was Disney's Robin Hood, the animated one with the foxes.
Wow, that's interesting. Like you kind of picked like 3 very varied gamuts there, because you have Casino Royale, and then you have Love Actually, and then you have a animation Robin Hood.
Going all over the place.
Tell us a little bit about your British connection, because I feel like the first 2, I think the people need to know about your love for Britain.
I don't know. It's all kind of tied to soccer and the Premier League, and just spawned into Doctor Who, BBC America, Broadchurch.
Broadchurch.
Just a bunch of those shows. Luther. And James Bond, obviously.
Yeah. In terms of James Bond, has Casino Royale always been your favorite? Or before Casino Royale, it was something else? And I mean, obviously, there was something else, but like, what's your other favorite in James Bond world?
I would say probably GoldenEye, because that was the one that really stuck with me as a kid, and I had an N64 with the GoldenEye game and had a little too much fun with that.
Yep. Oh, if I said, I missed that. But what do you most like about James Bond? Because as we talk about John Wick, I think there's a lot of similarities there and dissimilarities.
Yeah. I like just the intensity, the ridiculousness of, some of these plots, and the world is going to end, or some crazy terrorist organization just has some just ridiculous plan, and he's one guy going in to take him out. Right. And just all of the cool gadgets he gets, and all of the interesting people he meets, his different connections. It's a really cool universe, and I like how they just continue to, I guess, for lack of a better term, recycle the character, and it keeps it fresh, it keeps it fun, but it still has that same James Bond kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and Casino Royale was actually quite different too, in a sense, because there was you were seeing a lot of vulnerabilities of James Bond that you may not have seen before, right? I mean, the whole Ava Green sort of plot line and her what's the word I'm looking for? Betrays him. And after he fell in love with her and all that stuff, you kind of see a part of James Bond that you haven't seen before, which I really like.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. And that one too, for me, just felt a little more gritty than the previous ones that I've seen.
Yeah. He was less perfect in that movie. Like, I mean, he was slipping, falling, getting hurt, and just, even the chase sequences seemed a lot more realistic for some reason.
Yeah, I just actually read an article right before this that said he does all of his stunts for the movies, and
Daniel Craig?
yeah,
Oh,
he's
gee.
lost teeth, he lost part of a finger.
Wow.
Um, yeah,
I never
and I know
realized.
he just hurt his ankle in the filming of the most recent one, and I think they're resuming
Yeah.
shooting pretty soon.
Yeah, I did see that in the news. I don't know who they're gonna go with next, but I feel like I don't. I'm a little sort of torn between whether they go experimental and unique and diverse, or they continue down the same line. Because there's something about James Bond that I like as it is, but then there's also something to be said about trying something different.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I hear the rumors of Idris Elba or having a female Bond, and I think both of those could be really exciting and refreshing to the series, especially with the last few movies to me seem to have gotten a little stale,
Hmm.
for lack of a better term.
Yeah, especially Spectre. Spectre just didn't do it for me, and especially because they seem to have wasted a antagonist like what is he? How do you say it? Blumfeld.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Christoph Waltz is such a good actor that I just didn't feel like they did justice to either one of those two things. All right, so moving on from James Bond into what we're here to talk about, John Wick. Mitch, why don't we start off with like an overview thought of what did you feel about this specific chapter, Parabellum? Just and would you recommend people to go watch it in the theaters or watch it on video on demand or do both or don't watch it ever again? What are your thoughts?
it was my favorite, close favorite of all the John Wick movies. I would say definitely go see it in theaters. Get it on the largest screen you can. Do Dolby or any sort of large format, increase picture quality, however they have that set up by you. Definitely go see it.
And so I guess you covered that second part, which is basically which how do you rank this? But would you say like this is first, and then the first movie is second, and the third one is the second movie? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I would say that. The only reason, the thing I really liked about the first, obviously, is that it set up the character and it had such an intense origin story
Yeah.
um, for the character in the movies.
Uh, So I'm with you in many things, but like the to me this one was better than the second one definitely, but not as good as the first one. And to me, like the main thing that was missing with this one, and definitely missing with the second one, but more so with this one was that emotional motivation. So the first one, the dog dies, and then the car. So there's this very strong motivation for John Wick to do the things that he's doing. In the second one, he's kind of surviving and being chased. And this one, he's like ultra chased by everyone, and that works. But John Wick's never gonna die, so there's no emotional sort of tie in to that aspect. That oh my god, he's going to die. So that kind of felt like I wish there was more, but in terms of action, they just killed it. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the set pieces, but that to me was way better than the second one, even though the emotional motivation wasn't there. That's why it kind of is better than the second one to me.
I agree, and I think they tried to tie in the motivation of him wanting to. I don't know if this is a spoiler or not. Uh, in the end of the movie, kind of, he has a choice to make,
Yes.
and it's tied into his wife and his relationship with her and his feelings for her. Um, and I didn't necessarily think that was super strong, but I see why they did it, and it kind of tied some things together for me.
I see what you mean. I think that maybe it was too implicit or too subtle. I don't know. Maybe I'm like I wanted to be very explicit. I definitely didn't want this dog to die. So I'm and he I'm not gonna say anything. I'm also like trying to like straddle this line of spoiler territory. But yeah, I agree with you on the kind of note that you just made. Uh, in terms of my overall review of the movie, I do agree. Watch it in the theater. Watch it on a big screen. I watched it in Cinemark XD, but you can watch it IMAX. You can watch it Dolby. Yeah, whatever is the biggest format that you can find, watch it there, and watch it with like a bunch of people because I think it's like one of those movies that you really want to watch. And I will say one disclaimer here is that this one is a lot more gory than the first two.
Oh yeah, for sure. There are a lot of loud audible gasps in my movie theater at certain
Yes.
points.
Yes, and there was this random dude who was just laughing every time there was like
I had one of
something.
those guys too.
Yeah, it was weird. Okay, so with that, any final words on John Wick before we go spoiler discussion?
No, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Okay, all right. So I agree, and this is the point we move into spoiler filled territory. So if you haven't watched the movie, please do not listen to this portion unless you're some sadistic person who likes to know the spoiler portions before watching the movie. All right,
I'm so
one,
excited.
2, 3. Okay, dive into what you think are the things that you loved the most about this movie, Mitch. Let's start from there.
We talking specific scenes or?
Well, yeah, scenes or character sort of arcs, or even like set pieces, maybe world building, whatever.
Oh, geez.
World is your oyster, my friend.
Okay. So I loved kind of the first big fight scene in the museum with all of the knives.
Yes.
It was fast, it was intense, it was a little over the top, but it was that kind of got me excited and made me feel like, all right, here we go. I'm in a John Wick movie, and it's more than just the gun fu. They're adding another kind of element to it on a larger scale. I know they've had knives before, but this took it to a whole nother level for me.
Right. And then that portion where he like just punctures the eye was one that like I wanted to look away, but I was still looking at the screen, just cringing
Yep.
but loving
Yeah.
it. It was very bad.
Oh, and also the library scene.
Oh yes, the book. Oh my god. Ugh.
Yeah. And I was very confused as to why he was going to the library, what he was going to do, and the book kind of tied back to his wife. He had some things in there
Mm-hmm.
to kind of help him out down the road, but then that one guy tried to assassinate him before the excommunicado was in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ended up shoving a book into his mouth, breaking his jaw, and then breaking his neck over the book, which was that was intense.
Yes, and I actually so those are the kind of things that I think that they do really well, like that kind of world building where a library all of a sudden is some sort of a safety security deposit box area or something, and then he like pulls out a cross, but it's actually a ticket for something that he's owed. That stuff is so cool.
Yeah.
And talking about the ticket. I really like Angelica Houston in the movie. I think she was really cool. And her little orphan company that she has built where she's training these ballet dancers / assassins on the other side. I don't know what that was about, but I would love to know more about that world.
Yeah, and one thing that was interesting, two things that really kind of stood out to me was the name that she referred to him as.
Oh, yeah.
It's like John Darney or John Donnie.
Yeah.
And it almost seemed like, and he referenced being a child of Belarus, which I believe is where Keanu Reeves was actually born. I could be wrong.
Yes.
I'm totally wrong. He's born somewhere else.
Oh, wait. Yeah, he was born in a Middle Eastern country.
Yes. But I almost got the impression that like they had a connection from when he was young, because I think during the wrestling scene where those two boys are wrestling each other, throwing each other, there was some reference to like, oh, did you remember this, or does this remind you of your time from before?
Right.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded as if like he was nurtured or brought up in that tribe, as you referenced. He called it a tribe, but uh, for a second there, I thought, is this his mother? But she almost seemed like, I mean, to an orphan, almost seemed like that role was played by her in his sort of early years.
Yeah,
I could almost see like a separate spin-off series, TV show about that tribe slash company. Uh,
that would be fantastic. I would be all in on that. Did you hear they're having a spin-off TV show?
Yeah, about the with the Continental Hotel, right?
Yes.
Which is
Yes,
interesting.
very excited about that.
I want to talk about. Okay, let's talk about Continental since we're already on it. Okay, what was your interpretation of the ending there, and what do you think? Like Winston was did Winston actually plan for him to stay alive?
I think Winston did.
Okay.
I if Winston wanted to kill him, he would have shot him in the head, like everyone else does in that movie.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
And he had to have known that his suit was bulletproof. I don't know if he necessarily knew that he was going to survive the fall, but I think it was kind of his own way out. And then not the concierge, I can't think of the actor's name.
Lance Reddick, who's a
Yes.
Sharon. Yeah.
Yes. His comment about like kind of like well
Well
played,
played.
sir.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so then yeah, to me that made it seem like it was intentional.
Well, and
That
how did?
he kind
No, sorry. Go ahead.
of, that was all.
And also, like, how did the TikTok man randomly show up there at the right time? That too was like a given.
Yeah. Right.
Talking about TikTok man, I don't know if I liked his character that much. I like Jason Mantzoukas a lot, but I don't know if they developed him enough. It was just like a guy there to be there expositionally.
I think so. Yes, I agree, but I think super spoiler that they're going to really develop that more in John Wick 4 if it happens.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about John Wick 4. Right. I mean, I think that there's going to be a John Wick 4. I think that it's definitely going to go into the arc of them bringing down this high table, which I almost feel like there's going to be two movies, just because everything that they've set up, it seems like high table might be too big to bring down in one movie. There might be like multiple families slash legacies and things like that to bring down.
I think ultimately, if it ends, it would have to end with John Wick getting out, whether he dies or whether he gets out. So to me, that means high table versus low table, or whatever they call the underground organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then there needs to be whatever organization is left, John Wick versus them getting out.
Yeah.
And he finally being free.
I think if they run like a 5-movie arc or even a 4-movie arc, I think he'll die. Because I remember listening to an interview with the director, Chad Stahelski, who basically says, like, this is a man that only has like two outcomes at the end of every story, which is he's either being chased to be killed or he's going to die. So that's like the only way he can. And if they really want to sort of close the franchise, which at some point they should, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I agree. Unless they do he's on some remote island somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And there are people still going after him, but he's got some freedom, some space.
What did you think about Halle Berry's arc and her sort of?
I was a little disappointed because I thought it was a little too short.
Really? Oh.
Judging by the trailers and some of the interviews I had read, I thought she would have more involvement in it. But that being said, her time there, I thought she was incredible. I thought her dogs were amazing. That kind of brought me back into the movie. There's a period right before there where I kind of got like it felt a little stale to me. Mm-hmm. And then when she was involved, things changed. Completely.
I agree with most of what you said. I think that she was in there for enough time, because I feel like, I don't know if I would have, I think for the time that she was in, they really focused in on her. I was noticing that when they were showing that action sequence where both of them are kind of bringing down that character Bronn or whoever. Well, I call him Bronn because of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But when they're bringing down his like empire, they concentrated a lot on her dogs, and I like that. And I felt like they gave her enough time. I just feel like she's gonna come back, and there's gonna be something to do with her kid in the next movie. Because the one thing that they didn't answer is like, okay, this adjudicator is going and getting everyone, giving everyone 7 days or whatever, like some sort of poetic justice for helping John Wick. Well, she helped John Wick too, even though she had that blood oath. They had said that the rules do not apply to John Wick anymore. So there's going to be some consequences to that. I hope, at least. So I think she's going to come back, and I think she's going to have a bigger arc in the second movie or the next movie.
I would love that, and I totally agree with your point of bringing back her daughter into it.
I really hope, because that would really heighten stakes. Because sounded like last time he protected the daughter and he put her somewhere where, and now she doesn't know. He saved her, or he got her out of some issue, and
Yeah.
and I think that him trying to save her again, the daughter again, would actually give some really strong emotional stakes to the next movie. I hope they do something on that.
Yeah, I'm all for bringing her in. I just hope her punishment, if she has one, has nothing to do with her dogs, because
Oh,
I cannot take
jeez,
another
no.
dog dying in these movies.
No. I was every time the dog is in the movie, like every scene that the dog is in, I just keep thinking, just do not die. Please don't die. Please don't die.
Yeah, when that one dog got
Oh,
shot.
jeez. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I liked Keanu Reeves in that scene where he looks down at her and he's like, "Don't do it."
Yes. Yes.
She's like, "Shot my dog."
But it's funny because like I see that because I liked that arc with Halle Berry, but as much as I liked her arc, I wasn't crazy about Zero's arc. The sushi slash ninja guy. I don't know. His comedic portions didn't work for me, except for when he gets up and like after he dies almost.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. But what did you think about Zero?
I was speaking of his death, I was surprised that John Wick did not say "be seeing you" as he walked away.
Yes, I was surprised too about that.
I wanted more, because he was just introduced and he was like the elite of the elite within the High Tables League of Assassins.
Yep.
And it's like, where did this guy come from? Like, I know there are other kind of assassins of very skills, specialties, but this guy was just kind of like, I'm the best. And I wanted to learn more about him, because it almost sounded like he had his own school or training program.
Right.
I don't know, it seemed like a missed opportunity to me, but again, I don't know how. I think it would really draw out the movie.
I felt like one of the issues with that character to me was like he was trying to fill in the shoes of a very strong antagonist in the movie, and at the same time, like the real antagonist is the High Table, but there's no face to them. I guess there's the adjudicator, but the fighting face is more him. And yet there wasn't, like you said, enough sort of build up for me to believe that he is as bad as he seems to be, or he seems to be given like credit for.
Yeah, I almost thought some of his students were better and more interesting characters than he was.
Yeah, the two from like the raid, right? I think they were in the raid.
Yeah,
and he doesn't kill them. John Wick doesn't kill them at the end, so I feel like they might come back. I hope they do.
That would be. Would love that.
What did you think of the adjudicator?
I was annoyed with her.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the acting or the role. But it's like, if you're going to give someone 7 days and they'll be replaced or lose their kingdom, for Lawrence Fishburne's character, make sure they're actually dead. Like, do something about it.
Well, I don't know.
Like, don't just sit there and make phone calls the whole time and tell people. It's like she just goes around and gives them a slap on the wrist. I feel like there's no real harsh penalty.
Yeah.
And she was just so willing to
Hmm.
parlay. She says, "Oh, this is the first wave of many," but
Yes.
there was no. She just gave up.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, the parlay portion, I felt like she was at that point, she was like really concerned of her life. But I think either the director or her, the actor, like one of the two were just like, we're gonna play it straight faced and we're gonna play it like it doesn't really affect her much. But I kind of wish that they had sort of dug a little deeper into her character's nuances because she kind of felt very one note to me throughout the movie.
I agree with that. I agree with
And
that.
then also, like to your point, I think that as a character, the decisions that she was making seemed very like, oh, well, clearly this John Wick dude is not going to die so easily, right? I mean, there's all these things. So why just stay in the hotel while running this, even though you have made this, whatever the word they use for making the hotel no longer a safe haven? She kind of and then she brings in two buses of these guys, but like, why wouldn't you have more of a backup plan on this? And why don't you have more? Since aren't you learning from your mistakes at all?
Yeah, it's. I don't know. It felt kind of weak.
What did you think of Lawrence Fishburne's character? Because I really liked him. I thought I felt like there was a little bit of Samuel L. Jackson hangover there. The way he was spewing those dialogues. I don't want to be. I don't want to sound like I'm comparing the two just cause. But like, I don't know. I didn't feel like that's the Lawrence Fishburne that I. That's the charisma that I like of his.
I every time I saw them together, I just went back to the Matrix,
Yes.
and in a way, it kind of ruined it for me. Um, just because I had these like expectations, and they were kind of, I don't know. I felt like both of their previous roles together were kind of hinted at a little bit in the dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just the role that Lawrence Fishburne has versus at the end what John or Keanu Reeves has, kind of the teacher, I'm bringing you into this world relationship, felt very similar to the Matrix to
Yeah.
me, in a way. I liked his character. I like that he's, very analog, very offline, in the streets,
Mm-hmm.
pigeons, literally underground. It's just such a nice contrast to the high table, cell phones going off, connections everywhere. You're in Central Park and everyone stops because they're all assassins. Like everyone's
Mm-hmm.
connected, and they just are more old school. And I kind of like
I
that.
Yes, I agree. Like the character, the rules of his world are pretty cool, and like the Bowery King itself, the title is pretty cool too. But I'm when I finished the movie, I was similar to you. I was just like, okay, so John Wick 4 is what Matrix sequel now. It's I really
Right,
hope that
right.
they kind of have subvert expectations with four in terms of what relationship the two of them are going to have.
I almost hope it's not a super strong one, and I hope it's just John Wick utilizing his network,
Yeah,
Lawrence Fishburne's network. I think that would be
yeah, and I
really
and I
interesting.
actually want Lawrence Fishburne to go negative because what I do want is like he using John Wick to destroy High Table, like kind of like the flip of what you said, but then Bowery King, now trying to get John Wick out of the way now that he's done his job for him. Because a big part of what Bowery King's character was like, oh, this is you cannot dethrone me. This is my thing. So it's not like he hates systems and the sort of the shackles of governance or whatever. He likes it. He likes having the power. He just doesn't like having a higher power to answer to. So I really hope that they sort of stay with that character. Um, I guess personality or trait.
Yeah, they. I could see him becoming the potentially an end villain for the series, or at least in the next movie or two.
That would be cool. I actually do think that would be cool because John Wick sort of fighting this underground world would be an interesting take on the whole John Wick series because it's less glossy than everything else that he does.
Yeah, speaking of glossy, that final battle scene I thought was very much so, literally.
Yes, but I think it ran long though because I started getting a little because they started repeating themselves in some ways, and I felt like, but I also don't blame them because it's so hard to innovate yourself when you're constantly innovating action sequences.
I felt like I was watching someone play a fighting video game. And it just like, okay, here's round 1, here's round 2, here's round 3.
Yes, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. Yes, I totally agree.
Exactly, and then you go up the stairs to the next level to the final boss.
Go back to the artillery room to get some weapons. Come back out. Yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's actually a very interesting point. So, speaking of, did you like the whole elder sort of subplot that they had, the desert, and that's how you see God or whatever?
I did, but it felt for the Elder being someone so powerful within the organization that they have. He and his people just seemed so disconnected
Yeah.
from everything and everyone. And like, if John Wick really wanted to, I felt like he could have killed everyone in there with the chisel he used to chop off his finger.
Yes, I was so like, I didn't get the extent of their power. If he is like next to God in the world of John Wick, then he did not seem like it, and it's not got anything to do with that it's in Morocco or in a desert or anything like that. It just didn't seem like they didn't establish enough power for him.
Yeah, just some dudes hanging out in the middle of the desert, just chilling.
And
like, right, like having a good old time. The only reason why I thought of that John Wick didn't murder them all was because he wouldn't know how to get home.
But he would have enough water to go because I'm pretty sure they have like food and water for themselves.
Yeah, he could last for a little while.
I was hoping that they were going to go a little more fantastical and show like some mystical piece to it. Like I don't know what, but I think that they tried to, but I just think that they didn't go far enough with it.
Yeah, they didn't seem. I think they wanted them to seem, to your point, all powerful.
Right.
But they didn't.
Yes. It's kind of like they were trying to make it hyper realistic, but also fantastical at the same time. And in the middle, it was just kind of like not either. And it didn't work either ways.
Yeah. Now, if they bring them, I think there's a chance for redemption if they bring them back in a future one. And we can really see how the high table and all these different layers are connected.
Right, and if they really like dig into why the hell is the elder an elder, I don't want just like, oh, because he has all these people following him and he has the power. Like I want him to have some specific tangible power, like he can really manipulate you, or like not like superhero power, but even then, so like something that is terrifying.
Like some sort of like kung fu mysticism.
Yes,
control over
like
you.
Something that they should feel like they have earned our interest enough to go a little further in this world building.
Yes, I agree.
So it feels like we're kind of shitting on a lot of things, but I know you loved it. I loved it too. I really enjoyed it. I think it's just like we're nitpicking on a few things, but let's talk a little bit about. Let's give credit to where credit is due to Chad Stahelski and that whole stunt coordination team. I mean, the lighting, the cinematography, the choreography of all those set pieces was insane, and the editing. I mean, there's so many. What John Wick's action that they don't get enough credit for is the extended sort of long takes that they have of people just brutally fighting each other. That sort of choreography takes weeks, if not months, to prepare for.
And that makes, to me, John Wick. It's more than just the gun fu style. It's those longer takes and just the fluidity of it all.
Yeah, and they really outdid themselves with bringing in like the bikes and the horse sequence. I really like the horse sequence. I really like the bike sequence.
Yeah.
And it was really more than just the kind of, hand-to-hand combat or knives, even though the knives and the axe was really well done.
Yeah, they definitely escalated and stepped up their action game with just the types of weapons, at the end when all those guys that raided the Continental with their body armor and how those weapons weren't working. So they had to get a little more creative. It just made it so much more interesting to me. Otherwise, I think the movie would have been a little more stale.
So speaking of sort of going, building this world further, what do you want them to explore? now that we're probably two movies, like maybe two movies are left in the series, but then there might be spin-offs and things like that. What do you think that would be cool to watch?
I I'd like to just see how all aspects of the organization are intertwined. I want to learn more about this world that they've created, but I really want to see a prequel movie where John Wick completes
Yeah.
his impossible task that set him on this
Yes.
path.
Agreed. I actually I do feel like they might do this, but they did Europe in the second movie. And then they did Morocco in the third movie. I kind of hope they go like China slash Indian subcontinent in the next one. I really want them to explore that side too. That'd be fun.
Let's keep going. Let's just do a John Wick on
Yes.
every continent.
Who do you think that they should have sort of, Halle Berry showed up in this one and there was Angelica Houston. Who else would you like to see in this world? It's a tough question, but I'm curious what you would think.
Uh, yeah, very tough question. And just kind of off the top of my head, some names that come to mind. I think Danny
Oh,
Trejo, if I'm saying
yeah.
his name right,
That would be interesting.
could be really, really
Yes.
interesting. And then Zoe Saldana
Interesting.
and or like a Michelle
Huh.
Rodriguez.
I really like Zoe Saldana. I think she could be, like fit in very like even Thandie Newton could fit in really well into this world.
Yeah, I hope they keep bringing in other big names in support in the
I
future movies.
I feel like they should bring in someone like someone really big like Bruce Willis as the villain. Like just because I haven't seen Bruce Willis do something that is of worthwhile in a very long time, and and this is action. I feel like this is his territory. He could really kick some ass here. But I really want someone really good as an antagonist in the next movie.
Who do you think could fit that
I don't
role?
know. It would be interesting to even turn certain actors on their sort of usual tropes, like have a Jackie Chan or someone in there. I don't know if that's gonna work, but have you seen The Foreigner, the movie with
I have not. No.
Jackie Chan is a really good actor, and he can do really good serious like movie. The Foreigner is supremely serious and intense, and he is great in that movie. I just feel like people just don't give him enough credit for the acting side of him. I think bringing him in, even someone as berserk as like Clint Eastwood, because of all the references of the gun fu and things like that, I think would be pretty cool as an ode.
That would be really cool. I like that selection, that choice you made a lot, especially because I felt like they hinted at a lot of older weaponry
Yes.
and
Yeah.
pistols and knives in this movie.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm excited to see where the series goes. I really hope that they bring in a little bit more of the emotional motivation, like we already talked about. But you know what? Keanu doing crazy action sequences, I will pay for the rest of my life and longer. And he's such a great guy that I want to watch him on screen every time he's out there. What are your sort of final thoughts on this?
I'm really excited on how they can top this movie going forward. Both just visually from the set pieces to the style of action, what they're going to do to elevate it, who they're going to bring in. I'm ready for the next one.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Mitch, thank you so much for being on here and discussing John Wick with us. Hopefully, you can join us again and you had a good time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'd love to. This is fun.
Nice. Well, guys, hey, if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, rate, comment, review. You can do it in whatever feed wherever you're getting this feed. It really helps the show. And if you haven't already, join us on filmstop.podcast on our Facebook group. And you can always email me at filmstop.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, bye, guys. Bye, Mitch.
Bye.